This is Morning Report. Well, on election night, Bill English may have been forgiven for thinking he'd won the election. He ended up with 44.5% of the vote, but now finds himself settling into a period in opposition, and he joins us now in the Auckland studio. We are live streaming this interview too on all our usual platforms, so log in there if you want to see this interview. Good morning to you, Mr. English.
Morning, Guy.
What sort of opposition are you going to be?
Oh, it's strong, organised, focused, and arguing for what New Zealand doing well. You know, building on the strength that New Zealand's earned over the last 9 years, and making sure this government doesn't fritter that position away.
A positive opposition or an opposing opposition, a negative opposition?
Well, we're going to be critiquing the government and criticising them because they've got policies that won't work that well. But positive about what can be achieved for New Zealand, because that's the benchmark here. The benchmark here isn't, we believe, what the government has set out to do, which is indicate the economy is going to slow and not too much can be achieved. We think New Zealand's on a track with confidence and energy, and it's their job to build on that, not fritter it away.
Are you going to reorganise your opposition, your party, and have a reshuffle and change the portfolios?
I think initially we will focus on using the knowledge we have, because it's quite detailed and intense from a time in government, to hold the government to account at this stage, and there'll be opportunities for, obviously for changes later.
OK, I want to look at a couple of MPs this morning, one out and one in. Todd Barclay, firstly, no charges laid there. Do you consider that the end of the matter? Well,
it is the end of the matter.
Did it hurt you?
Oh, look, I don't know. I don't think that never that big in the public mind. It was a very unfortunate set of circumstances, just a personal dispute that got out of hand. But it's now been thoroughly looked at twice by the police, and the matter's over. OK. I want to also look this morning at your MP, Jian Yang, who remains in the caucus. What responsibility is he being given this term? Well, that's yet to be determined.
What current responsibility does he have?
Well, he's been a backbench MP on attending select committee and doing his constituent work, particularly for the Chinese community. So he hasn't had, designated responsibilities. And at the moment, we're working through the process of opposition spokespeople.
Is it true that he spent 15 years working with the military intelligence apparatus of the Chinese government?
Well, that'd be a matter best to address to him about exactly how he'd define what his past career has been.
Well, what is your understanding? You're the leader of the party. You've been the Prime Minister all of the year. What is your understanding? Is this statement true? He spent 15 years working with the military intelligence apparatus of the Chinese government. Is that your understanding?
Well, he has been open about his description. Whether he'd use that or not is a matter that you would need to talk to him about.
Well, what is your understanding?
Well, look, our understanding is that he has now had officials looking at the issue of whether he met the requirements for citizenship, and it appears that is the case. There's been no problem with the way he obtained a citizenship, which is now quite a number of years ago. When he became a National Party candidate, he declared his background. He was open about that.
So you knew that he'd spent 15 years working with the military intelligence apparatus of the Chinese government?
Well, he was open about his background.
Did you know that, though?
Well, look, there'll be an issue over whether that is a completely accurate statement.
Well, I'm giving you the chance, mate. You tell me, is it right or not?
Well, look, he worked at universities. He's described some of those activities. It appears that he did have some connection to military intelligence. He was open about that.
Did you know that as leader of the party?
What's that?
Did you know that he'd worked with the military intelligence apparatus of the Chinese government and taught spies?
Well, I don't necessarily accept that characterisation of it, but the party was well aware of his background when he became a candidate. And of course, the test of this is, as a member of Parliament, has he carried out his functions? And the answer to that is yes, in quite a satisfactory way. And of course, in his community, he's well respected.
So you're comfortable with his background and the disclosures he's made about it?
Yes, we are.
Did the SIS investigate him?
Well, that's a matter that I won't discuss because I don't discuss operational matters of the SIS.
If they hadn't investigated him, I would... Well, let's try this. Have the SIS investigated you?
That'd be an operational matter with the SIS, and I'm not going to comment on it.
I put it to you that if they hadn't investigated him, you'd be able to tell us.
As I said, it's an operational matter for the SIS, and I'm not going to discuss it.
Do you know whether the SIS investigated him?
Well, I'm not going to discuss it.
Well, you haven't rejected claims that have been made in the media that the SIS indeed did ask questions about him.
Well, that's just a semantic game, and I'm not going to discuss it.
Did he teach spies?
Well, that's a matter for him to really to describe as to whether he did or he didn't.
Well, what is your understanding?
Well, look, the question here is, is it the case that for every member of Parliament we're going to take a view about the appropriateness of them being a representative according to their whole CV? Now, in the case of Dr. Jiang, he came to New Zealand. He's become a citizen quite some time ago, and from our point of view, he's done his job as a member of Parliament. He has a history which has involved interaction with apparently with the Chinese intelligence and military services. We have people in Parliament who've been involved with the New Zealand intelligence and military services.
Are you telling me there's no difference?
Well, we're talking about a New Zealand citizen here.
Yeah, we're talking about someone who worked for the military apparatus of the Chinese government, though, aren't we? You're saying
who is a New Zealand citizen, a member of Parliament, who's functioned in an appropriate way representing his community in the Parliament. That's what the situation as it sits.
Why was he removed from the Foreign Affairs Select Committee?
But people get moved around in select committees. I can't actually.
Was there no connection between what we've been talking about and that?
Well, I simply wouldn't want to make a comment without knowing exactly what happened, and I don't know what happened there.
Can you tell me whether there was a connection between him being removed from that select committee and these background issues?
I can't because I don't know for sure.
You got no recollection at all about whether there was a link there?
Well, as I said, I can't comment because I don't know for sure.
But you do know something about this, though, don't you?
I know about Dr. Jiang, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about him.
Can you really tell me that there was no connection between him being removed from the Foreign Affairs Select Committee and his background?
What I'm saying is I can't comment on that because I can't say for sure.
Do you have any ongoing concerns, or do you have full confidence in this Member of Parliament?
Well, we have no reason to believe that the way he's conducted his role as a Member of Parliament is questionable, and issues around that have not been raised. I mean, this is all about what happened when he was in China, the issues that have been raised in the last few days. No one has raised questions in an obvious way about his behaviour in New Zealand as a New Zealand citizen.
You've got full confidence that he's told you everything, and that you have full confidence in him as an MP?
Well, he is a New Zealand citizen, has been for some time.
I know that.
He's a member of Parliament.
I'm just asking you, do you have full confidence in him as an MP?
Yes, I have no reason to not have confidence in him as an MP, and no one's raised one.
Okay. Just finally, because we're going to go after this interview to Andrew Little, who's the new Minister for Pike River. You were quite adamant as a government that this wasn't a decision for politicians, that these were heavy safety concerns, and that manned entry was not something you wanted to contemplate.
That's not correct. What we always said was the decision has to be made according to the law. That is, someone takes responsibility for the safety of the people who go in there. And that Mr. Little can't get round that. Someone has to take responsibility under our law of New Zealand for the people who go into Pike River. We never said it shouldn't be done. It wasn't our position to say that. What we said is that the people who had the opportunity to do it, that was Solid Energy, they decided not to proceed with.
So they're going to set up a new entity so that someone does take responsibility? Because you're saying from a governance perspective, as a director, right, you are responsible for that.
Yeah, either that, or they're going to have to pass law to exempt this workplace from the requirements that apply in every other workplace in New Zealand.
So in short, because we're going to go to him shortly for him to answer this, but what problems do you foresee the Labour-led government having in manned entry to Pike River?
Well, the problem is how to get round the law. I mean, our health and safety law was tightened considerably because of Pike River. The Labour Party were strong advocates of that. And so now they have to find a way, and they may be able to do it, but it will be a challenge, either find people who are willing to take responsibility, so they'll have to create some other entity and put some people on it, and that's possible, who are willing to take responsibility under the law, or exempt the workplace. So those have always been the choices, and changing the government hasn't changed the choices.
Thanks very much for your time. That's the opposition leader of the National Party, Bill English. It is now 12 minutes to 8.